moment the sunlight stretches past the horizon, it enters my tent and wakes me from sleep. The dawn of the morning and I am up with the dew. It is the same for me each day. I never fear missing the first light that reveals what today will be in the wilderness. As the sun rises, it further illuminates all that resides here in our dwelling. Bundles of our possessions occupy the edges and wait to be gathered the next time we move our camp. If the cloud curls up into itself and takes to the sky, we have to be ready to move. I fold back the flap on the door of my tent. I can see it now. The cloud hangs over the place where he is. In the night, the glow of fire is within it. Whenever I stop and fix my eyes upon it, a rush of energy flows over me as I think about my proximity to greatness and power, to God's glory. There have been times the cloud has lifted and moved, and I wondered if it may leave us behind in search of another people. Can God's presence only remain for so long? My husband tells me, no. On those days, he speaks the truth to me as we pack our possessions. All we could carry out of Egypt, along with the livestock and the gold the Egyptians pushed into our hands as a final attempt to fully rid themselves of us on that day. This has been our life since then. We are his people, and when he moves, we move. When he dwells, we dwell. We have no direction or aim when we are walking, except to fix our eyes on the cloud and walk on. I feel as if we walk in a maze that keeps the bends and turns pointed inward, so that we will never find a way out. My husband tells me to follow faithfully, and one day our journey will be no more. We walk on. Eventually the billows unfold and the cloud reveals where we will settle this time. First, we set up our God's dwelling in the pattern we know well, in the exact detail he has given our leader Moses. Moses knows him better than anyone in our camps. I've watched him climb the mountain to meet with God. What that means, I do not know. I've tried to imagine how Moses can come before him and then retreat down the mountain alive and well. How can he go before him when we ourselves cannot even glimpse his glory within his dwelling? Once, when Moses came down the mountain, everyone in the camp was stirring in anticipation for this moment. But when we saw his face, we froze in terror because his face glowed in a way unknown to man. There was an undeniable impression left on him. Everyone ran, afraid that he had acquired some mystical power to finally eliminate those in the camp that hold to the old ways and create dissension and turmoil among us. But I was not afraid. I was intrigued. I do not pursue our past or hold on to anything from Egypt. I'm happy to leave this behind, but I do question the way God has done things. At times, my husband will wave his hand and give me the hush hush as we lie on our mats at night, recounting the day. This is the time when the questions come to my mind. All, for the most part, is quiet and still in our camps. The hum of the fire and the glow run through the night, assuring us that God remains in his dwelling as we sleep. This is when I think about knowing him. If I could just be inside the dwelling, I could find something to keep my hope alive. We have placed our trust in such a mystery for this wilderness. I have a child. His youth remains, but his health does not. His life began in a wilderness in a time of great confusion. My husband and I were occupied with fear as to how we would make a life for our family here. This is what I do. I keep him alive. Some days this is easy. Other days I would willingly pass the task to someone else, for I feel so incapable. When we move our camp, I fear he will not survive, and it might be the moment that illness will overtake him. Do not mistake his illness to be a burden for me. My son is a gift in this wilderness. As my husband tends livestock and occupations in our camp, my son and I move about our small tent. Though he has no energy to rise, he greets me with a smile and knowingly points over my shoulder so that I will turn and look at the cloud each morning. We tell each other stories all day long. His versions are of things I have told him. We recount the events of people moving to leave Egypt, departing in a swarm after such great events had transpired, events that make for a great story, but I assure him of their absolute truth. He asks me to tell him again how the great Pharaoh of Egypt pursued us as we clung to the edge of the Red Sea. We sing the songs of the people that trod on dry ground, freshly delivered from a painful death at the hand of an evil man. Some days, I think my son will wake up and run up and greet me where I'm gathering manna for the day. But this is not a reality I allowed to live in my mind for too long. Years and years of holding onto his life has given me a different picture. I love him more as each day passes, but I have dread alongside for the inevitable time when he is gone. So today, as always, I have risen with the sun, and as I catch a glimpse of the cloud this morning, questions come like a flood. Maybe because yesterday was an especially difficult day for my son. I've had many desperate days with him, but as they pile up, I feel that I have less and less courage to carry on. Does my son know who dwells in that tent? Of course he does. We recall it day after day in our stories. But does he believe me when I tell him what God has done for his people? Can he believe me? When he knows there is an almighty power that dwells there, and I have not yet taken him there at a chance of healing, a chance at life. Has he reasoned this in his mind? Does he think that I am not doing all that I can do to make him well? If I could carry my son into God's dwelling, I know there is more power there than we could ever need. If I could stand in his presence and make my plea for my son, I would talk unyielded for days of his greatness to us.